Who is the first person you think of when you hear the word leader?
Martin Luther King.
My brother.
Martin Luther King Jr.
I was just gonna say MLK.
President Barack Obama.
Trump.
My father.
Nelson Mandela.
MLK.
What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word leadership?
I want to say the President of the United States.
I usually think of the word role model.
Confidence.
Initiative.
Power.
Probably president.
Responsibilities.
Role model.
In class, Arthur Schwartz taught us that young children will often have answers like the ones you just heard when asked similar questions because they're probably still in the awareness or even exploration state of the leadership identity development model. Well, it turns out that our peers who haven't yet reached the key transition that most of us have are at the same level of education as elementary school students. Just kidding, because about 3 years ago, I probably would have answered the same thing. Throughout my life, I've had countless experiences that have helped me develop into a leader. Along with these experiences and interactions, the teachings from my time in the Leadership Minor program have fine-tweaked my abilities as well as form a personal definition of leadership. From an early age, I enjoyed surrounding myself with supportive people and never feared what others thought of me. I was heavily involved in teamwork throughout my childhood, including soccer, field hockey, and lacrosse teams, in addition to my participation in clubs and organizations at school. I strongly believe in a leader's ability to communicate effectively. Without proper communication skills, an individual can't perform at his or her optimal level, which is essential for a successful leader. For myself, my communication skills triggered my leadership abilities. My communication skills and leadership abilities are a strong reflection of my relationships with people, something that I hold very close to my heart. So my family places a high value on the relationship that we all share, including my extended family and close friends. All of my values, both innate and learned, have been formed by my mom, dad, brothers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. You get the picture. But there's been one person who has really shaped me as both a leader and an individual from before I can even remember. This person is Bev, my Jamaican nanny, who moved in with my family when I was only 2 weeks old and has acted as my second mother to me ever since. Since the day she moved in, I have developed and fostered such a special relationship with her. She always taught me and encouraged me to be my best self by treating others with respect. She has taught me to be the most confident person in the room while teaching me to also remain humble. Humility has remained a large part of my definition of leadership. I find that my ability to remain selfless is a reflection of the values and lessons Bev taught me growing up. Her signature line to me was a common Jamaican phrase, "Irie man." Urban Dictionary defines the phrase as, quote, "to be at peace and harmony with yourself and the status quo of your existence," end quote. Bev likes to think of it as a sign of respect to someone. Only by having respect for yourself will you be able to show respect towards others. I also learned to handle adversity at an early age, something I believe all leaders must face. Facing adversity builds character, forces an individual to adapt to a new or different situation, and perhaps make an important decision quick on their feet. When my parents first separated, I was only 7 years old and finishing up first grade. As one can imagine, divorce is not easy at any age, but to a young child, it is truly a foreign concept. At the age of 7, I did not understand what a divorce was or how it would even have an effect on me for the rest of my life. I'm not even one to say that my parents' divorce has been detrimental to me or my family, but there have been consequences. Shortly after telling me, my parents brought me to see a therapist, where I remained visiting every so often until high school. Throughout my time working with my therapist, I learned how to cope with stress, sadness, fear, uncertainty, and loss. Not only did I learn how to cope with these feelings internally, but I was able to verbalize and express them to others. Part of being a leader is being emotionally intelligent, having the ability to recognize one's own feelings as well as the emotions of others. So if you think seeing one therapist wasn't enough, my emotional intelligence was heightened by my psychiatrist of a mother. The most loving, kind, and nurturing woman I know, my mother taught me empathy, compassion, and respect for others. The empathy I learned to have for others was reinforced by my therapist's teachings of self-awareness and self-regulation. When I first learned about emotional intelligence and aspects of the social change model, I was able to identify myself as a leader because I felt a personal connection. But I realized there was much more to defining a leader. It took me some time to understand the different theories, but as I continued to experience significant life events, my leadership definition expanded. Just last semester, I studied abroad in Sydney, Australia, where I met interesting people, tried new foods, traveled to several foreign countries, and lived on my own across the globe for 6 months. During this time, I became a stronger, more independent individual because I had to face obstacles alone and make decisions for myself. While most of my memories of abroad are filled with pleasant encounters, there was one specific instance that took a turn for the worst. Just 2 days before my mom was arriving in Sydney to visit me, a cyclone hit Hamilton Island, where we were supposed to travel to see the Great Barrier Reef. Due to the terrible damage that was caused, we were unable to go on our trip and instead had to come up with an alternative very quickly. But because my mom was boarding her flight within the hour, I was in charge of planning the alternative trip, and I only had 2 days to do so. So instead of continuing about my day, I quickly dropped what I was doing to deal with the situation, which included finding new flights, hotels, places, and excursions, all while canceling and trying to get refunded for our previous, already canceled trip. As I discussed the idea of adaptation earlier as a possible result of adversity, I couldn't help but share this example. While adaptive leadership can be difficult and frustrating, I believe it's something every leader can work on. Requiring sudden change is no easy feat, but a true leader can take any situation thrown at them and find the best solution. As I graduate this spring, I've thought about all of the ways I'll continue to grow as a leader and implement what I've learned here in my everyday life. I hope to work in HR where I'll work with different types of people and will be constantly communicating. As described in the generativity stage of the LID model, it is my goal to promote team learning, accept responsibility for the development of others, and continue to learn from others. So whether it be at work or in other future endeavors, I hope to reach the internalization stage and continue my self-development and strive to be the best leader that I can be. But one thing is for sure, being in the leadership minor has exposed me to professors and students alike who have set an example for what leadership truly is. Though we all have our different opinions on a definition, I can say that however you classify me as a leader, my skills and abilities have been greatly influenced by these courses.